Welcome back to the Church Answers podcast. My name is Jess Rayner. I'm here with the man you're coming to listen to, Tom Rayner, the guy who has so much information. I still don't know how you have all this stored up in your head. You know, even as your son, some of these things that you're able to articulate, and that's just up in that brain of yours. I don't get it. I don't get it.
I'm not sure what you're talking about, but I know I have brain leakage at times, and it comes out my ears.
Mm-hmm.
And I try to recapture it, but it's gone after it leaks out of my ears.
Oh, that you might want to see a doctor for that. That's not a good thing. If
I had Dr.
leaking.
Allen look at my ears, and he saw nothing.
Okay. All right. So just age. Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, we're so glad you guys are here and joining us today. It's always a blast when we get to sit down and talk about the church. I just know our team here at Church Answers loves the church. We love church leaders.
About all of us. I mean, if you add all of our team up, we'll have 10 or 12 core members, and then you count all of those who do other things for us. It's about 20.
Right.
And every one of us love the church.
We really do. We really do. And so this podcast in particular, talking about church revitalization, is near and dear to our hearts. In fact, I hate when churches close their doors. Absolutely hate it. I'm seeing it in my area. I'm trying to do something about it. I'm trying to help some local churches here, getting involved and getting on the forefront.
They're tired. They've tried and tried. They haven't usually had an outward focus. They've been inwardly focused, which is more tiring than an outward focus, by the way. Outward focus energizes, inward focus depletes.
Mm-hmm.
And we think that if we take it easy, we'll rest. No, if we try to reach people, we will be energized. Just the opposite. But that's another topic.
It's true. It is true. And so we love the local church here, and we want to see more churches revitalized. We want to see more churches thriving, living out the Great Commission in a way they never lived out before. Even though I'm a church planter, I've been in the church planting world for over a decade.
Amazing.
I don't want to see churches close their doors, and so I have a heart for church revitalization as well. And so we're going to be answering more questions. We already had one episode where we talked about some of the most common questions asked about church revitalization. This is part 2. So if you didn't get a chance to go back, make sure you check out part 1. But we're going to be picking up where we left off. But before we do that, we want to take a moment and just thank one of our sponsors, Cheney Associates. If you listen to this podcast with any type of regularity, you know what we think about them. And if this is your first time, we think greatly of them. We think they're doing an amazing job, particularly in the area of church finance, church bookkeeping, church accounting. They are there for the church. You want to talk about one of our partners too. That's another cool thing is a lot of our partners have a heart for the local church.
All of our partners do. 100% of our partners do. It's amazing. But we're picky too. Right. We don't accept advertisers. We accept partners in ministry.
Right. And that is Cheney Associates. And so if you are a church leader and you are thinking about, hey, how can I get my finances in order? How can I get someone to help with my books? Maybe you have a bookkeeper who's getting ready to retire. My encouragement to you is to go check out CheneyAssociates.com/churchanswers. Go see just what they could do for you. Don't think your church size matters. They work with every church size, and they are willing to help and find out what they can do for you. It's worth a 30-minute phone call. It's worth going on the website and just seeing what could be a possibility. So check out Cheney Associates. We love what they're doing.
By the way, with Cheney and Associates, one of the things that hinders revitalization, maybe this is a bonus, maybe it ties into some of the other things we have, is where is the mind share of the leader? What is going on in his mind? What's preoccupying him? And what is taking place with that leader? And if that leader's worried about money, if that leader's worried about, are we keeping our books right? If the leader is ignorant about it to the point that that leader says, I don't know if we are doing this right or not. That's why Cheney and Associates is so important for revitalization. They take off the plate what the pastor has to worry about, and they're the best in the business. All they do is serve churches. So that's a bonus to that. Yeah. Now we got to get to, what number did we finish last time, Jess?
We finished number 7. We're on number 8, which is a perfect question to start off with. Because if you were going to go talk with Cheney Associates, maybe you can ask them this question. One of the questions that we receive quite often about church revitalization is, how do you increase the level of funding in the church? What are your thoughts on that?
Well, I want to go to your thought. You remember one of the things that you said in the previous episode was how important the vision was.
Mm-hmm.
People give to vision more than they give to projects or even financial needs. They give to vision. And if your church does not have a compelling vision, that means that you are not reaching optimal giving levels. So that's just one of the things that I would say there is so closely related to vision.
Mm-hmm.
Another thing is this: many pastors, no, most pastors, and this is a number picked out of the air, but I'm gonna say 3 out of 4 pastors do not like to talk about finances at all.
Right.
Do not like to talk about money. Do not talk about what the church is doing with the money. And that's wrong. Jesus had no hesitation to do it. And
Mm-hmm.
we've been sold a lie that it's not something that we should be talking about. Giving is a spiritual discipline. And if we're not talking to our people about growing as disciples by giving, we're not giving them the full orb of discipleship.
Yeah.
So I'm going off on several tangents right there.
No, we talked about actually that topic within a podcast recently, talking about some of the fears that pastors have, and it is talking about money. That's a key part of his teaching what stewardship is, teaching what generosity is. But I'm going to go back to that first thing, and I'm gonna take it on one more level up. A compelling vision increases giving, but realized vision really increases giving. And what do I mean by that? Is that when you see your vision lived out.
Mm-hmm.
We at the Church of Spring Hill, we say we exist because everyone needs the hope of Jesus. When someone takes hold of the hope of Jesus and believes in the gospel, and they receive salvation, that is realized vision. And so when you can not only have a compelling vision, but when you can see that vision realized, people respond to that in a giving way. And so for church realization, that's super important. A compelling vision that often when you can see just even parts of it realized, you celebrate that, and you tie that into the generosity of why they give.
And the baptism we most recently had with the lady was one of the best. They're all great, but
Sure.
it's one of the best ones we've ever had. She was invited by a neighbor. She had hesitation. She had, by her testimony, family issues that she did not articulate, but
Sure.
that she put up there, and someone just kept on loving her. People shared the gospel with her, and ultimately, I guess she's a single mom. Is that right?
Correct. Yep.
The single mom became a follower of Christ, and you could hear the catch in her throat emotionally when she talked about, "I'm doing this for me, but I'm doing this for my child."
Hmm. Yeah. It's wanting to see the generations changed in her family and see a new course trajectory. So yeah, anytime you have those stories, it's super compelling when you see your vision lived out. That is a question we receive often. So is this question: what do you do when conflict arises? Dad, is there ever conflict in church realization? Isn't it just all just glorious, no problems at all?
Here is what I'm learning about your generation and younger.
Okay.
You're the older part of this generation, so you're a somewhat of a mid millennial, I guess, somewhere in there.
I'm like top 25, older 25%.
Okay, mid to older millennials. So let's just say just born in '85. So those born in '85 and after. One thing I'm seeing is that there is this fantasy about church revitalization that used to be about church planning. Oh man, it's going to be this great opportunity. We're going to get together and we're going to see God grow this church, and we're going to watch the problems melt away. Everybody's going to agree with me. My sermons are going to be compelling. It's going to be a great time. I am seeing, not with the older, put you as the median point, say 40-year-old, but those under, I'm going to have 3 sons that are 40 and older.
I'm not 40 yet. Don't let me hold on to my 30s here just a little bit longer. I'm not 40
Well,
yet.
this podcast will go out. Let's see.
I'll still be 40. I mean, 39. Sorry, I won't be 40. I'll be 39. This podcast goes out on March 12th.
March
I'm sorry,
12th.
March 13th.
So you will be a month and 3 days away from 40 when this goes out.
I'm sorry. This podcast does come out March 12th. I misstate. This one comes out March 12th. So yeah, I'll be a month and a half from turning 40. That's right.
So that realization, oh man, that got me so thrown off on everything that we were talking about. But you're the median point.
Yeah.
And and those that are younger have a many of them have a fantasy view about revitalization. Those that are older many times have a cynical view about revitalization, and both of them are extremes that you need to bring in a bit.
Okay, so conflict arises. That's
Yeah,
that's clear. Um, the question we receive though is, what do you do about it?
let's answer with what you don't do.
Okay.
You don't kick the can. That's the most common mistake with conflict. Now, what does it mean to respond immediately? Well, different things for different situations. Depends on what the source of the conflict is. But the more you put it off, the worse the conflict gets. So whatever that means, don't kick the can.
Yeah, and honestly, that's to me a principle for any type of leadership, not just church revitalization. It it can derail church revitalization quicker though, maybe in an
Right.
established church, and so it absolutely is paramount. I'm one that I don't like conflict, but I don't hate conflict. I'm gonna
You deal with conflict a lot better than I do.
I'm gonna when it comes up, I'm just going to squash it right away because I don't want it to be a thing. That has to happen as well. You have
What if you have a job where it comes daily and it never stops? I've had that job. I mean, there was no break. Period.
Hmm.
When
I
you
don't
have
know what I would do, to be honest. If
when you have a constituency, I'm talking about when I was CEO of Lifeway.
right.
When you have a constituency that is in the millions,
Hmm.
it just keeps on going.
It depends on what conflict it is. Obviously, there's leadership always demands conflict in some capacity. It depends what kind of conflict it is.
You want let me share with you one of the more painful ones. Here I'm going down memory lane.
You do this a lot more now that you're getting older.
I am.
Hmm.
We at Lifeway started selling a Bible that many times an organization will say we want a Bible that represents our organization. So, for example, the Fellowship of Christian Athletes, Lifeway has they may still have it, I don't know,
They
an
do.
FCA Bible.
Hmm.
Well, another organization came along and they, they were great cause, breast cancer, and they wanted a Bible. They wanted pink Bibles, and of course, I didn't know about it until I did, and did not find out that this particular organization that was fighting breast cancer was also pro-abortion.
Hmm.
And boy,
That's tough. Yeah.
I
There's
mean,
conflict.
that's my own conviction too. That I
Right.
that I went. I had to fall on the sword. Didn't even had to find out what sword I was falling on before I could fall on it. But
Yeah.
that lasted probably a week and a half, which is a pretty long time.
Yeah,
Uh,
that level of organizational conflict can be very difficult. And depending on how you're wired, sometimes personal conflict can be more draining. And so, depending on what type of conflict it is, but what do you do when it arises? Knock it out.
Knock
Approach
it
it
out. Whatever that
biblically
means. Whatever that means.
within the spirit. You do it in the way that is biblical and spirit led when conflict arises, because that when you start doing revitalization work, the enemy is going to begin to work against you, and the most common way is to create division in the church, and so you have to squash that out very, very quickly. Which kind of comes to a little bit of a ties in with our next question. um, Criticism happens a lot. So this is not necessarily conflict, but criticism happens a lot. Or a question we are asked about revitalization is, what are the most common criticisms I can expect? Which again, I hope you are expecting criticism if you're going to go into revitalization. And
Because
so,
you're leading the change.
what are the most common ones?
The most common one, we've never done it that way before.
Yep.
I've been in this church forever, and you're doing something we've never done. And you can get snotty and say, "Well, that might explain a lot of things that are going on right now," but you
Nah.
don't. You try to be gracious and explain why you're doing what you're doing. Uh, Stylistic issues can become critical issues, whether it's music or length of service or preaching. You can go down the list. You're going to be doing something differently than they have it been doing to this point. You have to. And it's those changes that will cause the discomfort and thus the criticisms.
Yeah.
Sometimes you may not even be able to identify it because they'll couch it in so many different ways. But it has to do with you are leading the church to another trajectory. If you were not, you wouldn't be leading the church.
Hmm. Yeah. Yeah. That you're going to hear that time and time again. That first one you said, we haven't done it that way, and that's not necessarily criticism. It can be, Um,
It's usually criticism. It's
yeah,
coming up to you and say, I don't like the way we're doing things.
yeah.
And
And tip,
his first cousin, his people are saying,
that's right. That's right. And we talked about that recently in another podcast as well. So if you're going to be doing church revitalization, just expect the criticism.
right.
Expect it. It's going to happen. It's going to be difficult, but it's going to. You just got to stay with it. You got to keep pushing forward. You got to keep running. Which is great to talk about with our next a sponsor that we have. You got to keep putting one foot in front of the
Oh,
other.
what a segue. Well,
Sure. We were Church Answers. We're partnering with Upward Sports. In particular, Upward Sports is really focusing on a way that you can reach your community, and this is for any church. And I say
any,
any church,
yes, any church, any size, any place, anytime.
anytime, because there's a way to make this happen. Upward Sports wants to come help you organize a 5K. That is a run for you, people who don't know what a
Thank
5K
you.
is.
Thank you.
That is a yes, that was for you.
Why don't we
Uh,
go to the metric system for running?
I don't know. It's a good question.
Hmm.
Maybe it's easier to say than 3.11 miles. I don't know.
But you could have a 3 miler instead of a. Never mind. We
What
could.
would it be? I don't know. 3.11 miles, 3.12 miles, something like that is a 5K, 3.1 something. Um, but yeah, they are there to help you. And so if you want to learn of a new way that you can reach your community, check out Upward. Go to Upward. Make sure I get it, say it exactly right here. Upward.org/run coach, and go see what they got. Who knows?
And make an appointment with them, talk to them. You're going to find out this will be one of the best ways to reach your community. It'll be one of the most fun ways to reach your community, and eventually, because they have so many sports that they offer, from basketball to softball, I could just start going down to even pickleballs now on their list. They have so many. Eventually, you'll be reaching your community in a number of ways if you just stay with Upward over the years. Some of our platinum clients, Jess, are Upward fanatics, and they've
Hmm.
been at it for a long, long time.
Yep.
So that's a good segue.
Yeah.
Run away. That's a
Just
60 song.
yeah, it's a good one. Go check them out. This one's really easy to start. You just need one person in your church. My guess is at least one person in your church is a runner. And go talk to them and see if they'd be willing to help your church organize a
All
5K.
right, I got one more story. I realize time's running out, but this is not about me, so I'm not going down memory lane. I was speaking to a denominational leadership group yesterday, about 25, 30 of them, and I said, "This is first time I've ever had any contact. Church Answers has never had any connection with y'all, so it's really an honor." And someone said, "That's wrong." I said, "Excuse me?" He said, "That's wrong. You've had contact with us." I said, "Really?" I said, "When?" They said, 20 years ago.
Oh, you
You
didn't
did
remember
it.
that?
I didn't do that. Sam did it. Sam was 25 years old and did a consultation for this church in Minnesota.
Oh wow,
Well,
wow.
probably on behalf of Rainer Group.
Okay, that
And and no, I was not there. And he said, "It really did a good job." He said he was about 29 at the time, and they hit it off. And wow, so we got a runner who was running consultation. All of you boys were doing consultation stuff really young,
yeah.
really young.
Sam is definitely the runner in the family, so
I
clearly,
think
I don't think he
all
ran
three
up
of
to
them.
Minnesota, but he's definitely the primary runner of the family. But it's out there, and so check out Upward if you have any needs to reach your community. Check it out. They're running for adults is really really cool. But we're going to continue to chip away at this big old list we have, and we
It's a
came up
big
with
old list.
23 of the most common questions about church revitalization. This is part two, and we are actually on question 11. So we're slowly getting through these. But they're good. We're just trying to give you a general overview of what it looks like to have church revitalization. Our 11th question is this: how do you deal with staff as you seek to lead a church to turn around?
This is a presumption that is taking place, and the
Uh-huh.
presumption is that the staff is really not on board with the direction that the church will go. It may not be with malice; it just may be with comfort. But the staff member is at worst a hindrance, at best a neutral factor that you have to pay for in revitalization. There is no singular answer to this. You try to coach, you try to help, you try to come to positive solutions. And if they don't, do you fire? Do you move them from one place to another? Uh, I was in a church where We were definitely in a revitalization, and the staff member that we had to make the biggest change with was education and some others. Is back in those days when education was positioned, and we ended up moving him to senior adults in prayer, which is kind of a default position when these things don't work out. But it worked out okay.
Hmm.
He was old enough where we were able to do that. That's not always the case.
So what do you do if you go to church and the pianist has been there for 30 years? It's the grandma of, 4 people in the church.
Family church.
What do you do then if the pianist is not on board?
Eventually, you will have to make changes.
Okay.
The first step that I would make is for ask the pianist to do some things that may be out of her comfort zone that the church needs to do. And maybe she will come to the realization and she'll self-select to step down. Sometimes you have to make the tough decisions, but weigh the decision that you're going to make with the outcome that will take place beyond just a person leaving. It's going to be a lot of conflict, and you got to get ready for it if it's someone that is loved in the church.
Yeah.
Almost every pastor has seen that happen intentionally or unintentionally.
Yeah. And me being the optimist, I'm saying, well, maybe you meet with that pianist and ask them about their passions. Ask them what they see about
Good
a
point.
vibrant ministry and what it looks like, and kind of get them to be thinking and dreaming, and maybe allow them to take on some additional leadership. And so anytime you can work, most likely, depending on your church size, there's a presumption. There is staff. I'm going to say there's a presumption. Mostly it's probably going to be part-time staff. You've got to bring them in as quickly as possible, and get them dreaming. Don't come tell them the dream. Come bring them into the dream and into the vision about what could be, and let them get on board. And then hopefully, that the staff will be on board. If not, then you have to make some tougher decisions there.
Uh, Pianist situation. I think she's with the Lord now, so I think I can talk about it.
Okay.
A pianist situation. I viewed her in baseball terms.
Okay, go ahead. Explain.
She batted 500. She hit the right note 50% of the time. So, hey, she's batting 500.
Oh my goodness.
God bless Ruby.
I couldn't. I couldn't. I love music too much. I love worship too much. I couldn't.
Hey, your sister-in-law was the first pianist in your brother's church even before they were married,
That's
and
right.
she's okay. She's okay.
She's good. She's good.
She's okay.
She's good. Oh, all right. Let's move on. Another question here. This is a good one. And if you're thinking about, maybe you've been at your church for a while and you're thinking, hey, well, is church revitalization for me? We get asked that question. If I've been at my church a while, is it possible to become a leader towards revitalization?
Some of the best revitalizations I've seen have been when the leader gets revitalized first,
Mm-hmm. I
and
think that has to happen regardless.
it does have to happen. Yeah,
Yeah.
if you're there and you want revitalization, ask God to check your heart and work with you.
Right. Yeah. So the answer is yes. Is it possible to become the leader? I guess there could be, like, you have to really decide, are you just 100% burnout and you can't do it? Then you gotta kind of ask yourself the tough question. Is it time for me to step aside? Is it time for me to take a sabbatical? Like, do some things, get some space, work with your church leadership, and say, hey, I need to take a few minutes here, to really just take a moment and see if I can be revitalized.
Mm-hmm.
Most likely, maybe it's, if what we're seeing more and more is there's a lot of pastors that are getting closer to retirement age. And
Don't
I'm
move
just,
into retirement till you retire, though.
yeah, and that's what I'm saying. We're seeing more and more of older pastors just coast.
Mm-hmm.
And when you coast, the church begins to decline. And so that's the thing that can't happen, and it's causing some of this problems. And so, it is possible for you, as the existing leader, as the existing pastor, to see your church revitalized. And actually, in some ways, you may be better positioned than someone new coming in.
Absolutely. You know the church, you know what needs to be done, you know the people, you've earned some trust.
Mm-hmm.
So the possibilities are there. I think it's the right question, and I think it's the right person.
Yeah, I agree. Let's look at one more before we wrap up here.
All right.
What are some good case studies in revitalization?
They're all over the place. You can certainly read about them in Anatomy of a Revived Church. You can go back to two podcasts that we recently did while Jess was on vacation, an interview with a pastor in South Carolina. And again, his is a mega church now, but it's not about a mega church. It was a tiny little
Mm,
church that should not have revitalized by any stretch of the imagination. And then the other one was a pastor in a small town, fewer than 6,000, slightly over 6,000, Okeechobee, Florida,
mhm.
and again should not have revitalized. So we'll put the links to both of those in there. They're all over the place. We have them. Hey, if you want to look at case studies, become a member of Church Answers.
Mhm.
Pay that big fee of $9.97 and see all the churches that are talking about what we are doing to revitalize and see it in real time.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, before we wrap up here, we do want to thank Cheney Associates one more time. They're one of our sponsors for this podcast. Cheney and Associates is an accounting firm for the church. They are there to handle the numbers so you can lead your church. I encourage you to reach out to them if you have any finance or bookkeeping needs. They do an incredible job. They have a heart for the local church, as we talked about. They have a heart for local church leadership. And what they're doing is great, great work. If you got a bookkeeper who's near retirement, before you replace them, go talk to Cheney Associates. They're the ones who may be the best fit for you. Any size church is who they work with. So check out Cheney Associates. Go to cheneyassociates.com/church answers. Well, before we wrap up, I want to kind of go back to where we started here. Is there any hope for my church?
There's absolutely hope for your church. How do I know? I read the Bible.
Hmm.
And hopeless situations become situations of divine hope again and again and again.
Yeah.
Ask Moses, he'll tell you.
Yeah. I'm reminded of God's plan. Uh,
Yep.
his plan is the church.
Yep.
And so, yes, there's absolute hope. There's hope for you. There's hope for your church. There's hope for the people in your church, which I know is a bit redundant there because the people are the church. But there's so much hope out there. And if you're thinking about trying to, how do I answer some of these questions? Reach out to us here at Church Answers. We got lots of resources. We want to help you. We want to be there for you. We want to be there with you. We love the local church and we love what you're doing, especially if you're wanting to do a revitalization work. We're here to help you. So check out all that we have at churchanswers.com. I know there's been a lot of questions. We've had a lot of answers, and we're just so thankful that we're able to do this and have this conversation
We
here.
are Church Answers
And this is the Church Answers podcast.
podcast.
Thanks so much for being here. We'll see you on the next episode.